Norway is known for having a very successful economy. People from all walks of life, including experts and ordinary folks, look at Norway as a great example of how to do things right. Despite its small size, with just under 5.5 million people, Norway is considered one of the wealthiest countries in every way possible, and experts have many methods to measure this wealth. Before a major event last year, Norway was already enjoying its wealth. In early July of 2023, Norway found the world's biggest supply of a resource called phosphate, 77 billion tons of it in the north, doubling the world's supply. This is huge because phosphate is crucial for making things like fertilizers, electronics, and especially important, batteries and solar panels that we'll need for the next 100 years. This find, worth about $24 trillion, could make Norway the richest country, surpassing even the wealthiest nations like Monaco or Liechtenstein. But what does this mean for Norway and the rest of the world? Well, it's great news for Norway and could help the world by providing materials for food production and renewable energy. There are also risks. Some countries depend on selling phosphate and could be affected by Norway's discovery. Plus, important global powers see phosphate as a strategic resource, adding a layer of complexity. This situation isn't entirely new. Another country called Nauru once found a large phosphate supply and became very wealthy quickly, but later faced severe poverty. It's important to assume Norway will automatically avoid such issues, but looking at how Norway plans to use this newfound wealth, we can learn about managing natural resources, Norway's economic approach, and the thin line between success and failure in large-scale economics. So what will Norway do with this sudden boost in wealth? Can having too much of a good thing potentially cause problems for what's been a very stable economy? And what will the choices of this small country mean for key global economic issues? The world has 4 types of economics. There are countries that are expected to struggle economically and do struggle. There are those anticipating to face economic hardships but somehow manage to keep going. Some countries are predicted to do well but end up struggling. And then there are those expected to thrive and indeed do so. Norway stands out as an example of a successful economy. It's easy to think that wealth naturally leads to success, but history is full of examples where rapid economic growth led to long-term problems. Norway could have faced such issues too. Before the 1970s, Norway wasn't particularly rich, especially compared to other Western European or Scandinavian countries. It wasn't poor, benefiting from trade with wealthy nations, but its economy was mostly based on fishing, not a hallmark of wealth. This changed in the late 1960s when Norway discovered substantial oil and natural gas reserves in the North Sea. In the early 1970s, production started, led by Statoil, now Equinor, a government-created entity to manage these resources. While private companies were also involved thanks to their exploration efforts, Norway insisted that the state should own a 50% stake in any oil production license, reflecting the belief that these natural resources belonged to the Norwegian people and they should profit from them. This policy encouraged further oil exploration and made Norway an attractive destination for oil investment. Statoil didn't just extract oil and gas, it also invested in refineries, enabling Norway to process fossil fuels and sell directly to the European market, a huge consumer of energy. Now, Norway's refining capacity is so extensive that it imports crude oil from countries like Sweden and formerly Russia. The efficiency and management of their refineries are so commendable that it makes sense to refine oil in Norway and then distribute it to consumers, showcasing Norway's strategic and successful handling of its natural resources. Norway has made a lot of money from its natural resources, especially oil and natural gas. Even though it's not the biggest producer like the Gulf countries, Russia, or the USA, Norway keeps a large portion of the profits for itself and its citizens. This is quite different from many other countries where the majority of the profits go to the companies involved, leaving only a little for the state and the people. Norway's membership in NATO also helped it avoid some of the political and geopolitical challenges that other countries with newfound natural resources faced after the Cold War. There are plans to explore these geopolitical aspects more in a new channel with experts, so more insights will be available soon. Another advantage for Norway is its small population, meaning the wealth from natural resources doesn't have to be shared among too many people. But it's not just about getting the money, it's about using it wisely. For Norway, ensuring that the profits benefit the citizens was a crucial first step, and somewhat easier given its stable democracy and sufficient capital to build its own oil infrastructure. This is a stark contrast to some oil-rich countries in other regions which rely heavily on foreign investment and might have to make more concessions. Despite its advantages, Norway's effective management of its natural resource wealth is commendable. Many other developed democracies have struggled to maintain a fair share of their natural wealth, succumbing to pressures from big resource companies. The real challenge was using the revenue to genuinely improve the country's economy. Various strategies have been tried worldwide with mixed results. For instance, Venezuela used its oil money to fund social programs and keep taxes low, which initially benefited its people. However, this approach eventually led to market distortions and political competition to distribute more wealth, contributing to the country's instability further exacerbated by international sanctions. Alaska in the United States also has a unique approach by giving its residents a portion of the state's oil revenues every year, which is quite distinctive since the state does not impose any income tax. Being a part of the U.S., Alaska was already in a stable and prosperous position when it adopted this policy, so the economic impact was less dramatic compared to Venezuela. Some countries have directed their oil wealth into grand development projects to boost tourism and international business, aiming to create new economic pillars for the future when oil isn't as lucrative. While this strategy sounds good, it has raised concerns about transparency, especially in nations where leadership goes unchallenged. It's often hard to tell if investments in things like sports teams are genuinely for national economic benefit or just due to personal interests of wealthy leaders. This approach can also shift the benefits from oil companies to other industries through incentives like low or no taxes for businesses and individuals. This strategy is visible in the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. However, there is uncertainty about whether these countries can maintain their low-tax, high-spending regimes once their oil income decreases. Norway stands out with a different strategy. The country has high taxes on businesses, individuals, and various activities. After accounting for all taxes, including regional ones, Norwegians can pay over half of their income in taxes, plus they face one of the highest value-added tax rates globally, especially on items like alcohol. Despite these high taxes, Norway's cities don't flaunt massive skyscrapers or extravagant landmarks. This is because Norway doesn't spend its oil income directly on its citizens or flashy projects. Instead, it channels these funds into a sovereign wealth fund, a sort of national savings account. This fund ensures that the country's wealth is preserved and invested for the future, providing a steady source of income even when oil revenues might decline, demonstrating a prudent and sustainable approach to managing its natural resource wealth. The Government Pension Fund of Norway, valued at over $1.6 trillion, has grown significantly, helped by investment returns and Norway's position as a key natural gas provider, especially after recent geopolitical events. This fund equals almost $330,000 for every Norwegian citizen. Instead of distributing this wealth directly or spending it immediately, Norway invests it in this fund, which acts as a financial safety net for the country's future, especially when it can no longer rely on oil revenues. The fund's purpose is to ensure that Norway has a stable financial future akin to a person saving for retirement. It's designed to offset the potential loss of oil income with investment returns. This strategy provides Norway with a buffer against the unpredictable nature of resource-dependent economics, where fluctuations in commodity prices can impact national income. By having this fund, Norway can maintain public services without resorting to debt or economic instability, even when oil prices are low. Moreover, Norway's approach to taxes plays a critical role in its economic strategy. High taxes on businesses, individuals, and consumption contribute to this stability, allowing the government to adjust economic policies when necessary. By potentially lowering taxes to stimulate the economy, the government can support businesses and employment, demonstrating another layer of financial prudence and foresight in Norway's economic planning. When an economy is too strong, leading to issues like rising inflation or growing inequality, governments can use tax adjustments to cool it down. Raising taxes or altering tax brackets can directly tackle these problems. If a government relies solely on alternative revenue sources and avoids tax adjustments, it loses an essential tool for economic management, which is a point even those with libertarian views often concede. Moreover, paying taxes establishes a kind of social contract between the government and its citizens. When people pay taxes, they're more likely to pay attention to how the government spends that money, leading to greater scrutiny of government actions and reducing the likelihood of corruption and embezzlement. Norway's strategy for managing its natural resource wealth has been successful, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for every country with significant natural resources. The recent discovery of vast phosphate reserves in Norway underscores this point. These reserves could surpass the economic significance of Norway's oil and gas, given the global shift away from fossil fuels and the increased demand for phosphate, essential for high-performance batteries, solar panels, and fertilizers. Previously, Morocco was the primary source of phosphate, a situation closely monitored by major global powers due to the material's strategic importance. Now, with Norway potentially becoming a key player in the phosphate market, it finds itself in a unique position. Phosphate's critical role in various technologies and its classification as a strategic material by entities like the EU, the USA, and China mean that its trade is heavily regulated, similar to rare earth metals and uranium. Norway's discovery of vast phosphate reserves places it under the global spotlight, presenting both opportunities and risks. This development is particularly concerning for Morocco, which is heavily dependent on phosphate exports, comprising nearly a quarter of its economy. Norway's entry into the phosphate market could lower prices and attract businesses seeking a reliable source, potentially destabilizing Morocco's economy. The revenue from phosphate is expected to significantly boost Norway's government pension fund, possibly tripling its value, which could mean substantial indirect investment for every Norwegian citizen. Despite this potential economic boon, the discovery has received minimal media attention in Norway, reflecting the country's unique cultural attitude toward wealth and economic growth. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful content.